Hello, and welcome to episode 3 of How the Fuck, the talk show turned podcast where we chat with folks who know what the fuck they're doing and ask them how the fuck they got there. I'm your host, Katie Mateus.
I'm also your host, Ben Martin Mooney.
And I'm your thirdliest host, Zeki Alakaya.
So today we are joined by Anissa Garcia. Did I get that right? How do you say your name, ma'am?
Yes, it
I got
is Anissa. Yes,
Anissa
Garcia
Garcia. Cool.
actually. But
Garcia?
yeah,
Oh, I'm
yeah.
really sorry. I apologize. I will make sure that I get it right in the future. Uh, Anissa is an actress turned casting director for film and TV, with credits ranging from independent films to major studio features. So Anissa is known for her work on MCU feature films like Black Panther, Wakanda Forever, Blade, Doctor Strange 2, and many, many others.
So, Anissa, how the fuck?
Well, funny you ask. Yeah, it's casting is a weird thing. We didn't even start. Yeah, so I grew up doing theater, and then went to college for theater, and kind of fell into casting just by like a chance internship because I needed some credits and didn't want to be in classes anymore. Um, and I really liked it and just kind of kept doing it from there. It was a slow start, but then once I got my foot in, now it just kind of moves quickly. So
That's
Excellent.
awesome. Actually, I have a question that is not written down, but I'm curious because despite us being friends for
We're going off script.
we're going off
Right
script,
off
I
the bat.
know.
So
I'm
fast.
No, I'm genuinely curious because despite us being friends for like 15-ish years, I don't know when you made the decision that you didn't want to act and that you wanted to do casting.
Do I know something about Anissa that you don't know?
Oh boy.
Oh my goodness.
Wait, did I tell you this?
We had an early morning conversation. Well, early. It was like 8:30, 9 o'clock in the morning, and Katie was still asleep.
What?
We were hanging out in the living room, and I was like, I don't actually know how you ended up in casting, like the transfer from acting to casting. So this is
Oh wow.
Mhm.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I do remember that. It was early though. So I think it was sophomore year of college, where I had to do this really intense, like, through line, they call it. And we had to direct, produce, act, star in, and cast, do props, all set design, everything, for like maybe a half an hour of a section of whatever play we chose. And I thought that the casting portion was the most interesting to me. Everything except the acting was the most interesting to me. And I also was just kind of like realizing that I would like to be behind the scenes and not so much in front of the camera anymore. Just it's not me. Like even just now being in front of a camera, I'm already sweaty. So to think of like and this is barely, it's not like a film, so yeah, I would just be a puddle if I had to actually act.
But
I mean, you would have been a phenomenal stand-in for Viggo Mortensen in Lord of the Rings, though. Just drippy constantly. It would have nailed the aesthetic.
They passed me up for that one. So shame on
Unbelievable.
them.
Wow. Seriously,
You know
Peter
what?
Jackson making mistakes.
I think it worked out though, because then you would have broken your toe. You would have had daggers thrown at you. Like, there's a lot of like pros to have not being that character during the filming of that movie series.
It's fair. All valid points. Okay.
all right, I'm going back to the script. And I would love to know What is your favorite project that you've worked on, and why was it your favorite?
I think that Black Panther Wakanda Forever was probably my favorite because we started it before Chadwick passed, and then we had to stop midway through casting because of his passing, and then we picked back up, and it was more of like trying to tell a great story in honor of him. And I think that the roles were very specific. You know, we were casting out of Mexico, like the Yucatan Peninsula, and really trying to be authentic with a lot of the casting. And I think it was just a very important piece for anybody who loved the first film, and, you know, a bunch of kids saw themselves in that role. And then it was kind of like a paying homage uh, to Chadwick. So it's an important one for me.
Yeah. What was that like? I mean, you said you started casting before he passed, right? So how did that sort of change the process? I mean, I assume they kind of had to go back to the drawing board with scripting and that sort of like that piece. What was that like from your perspective?
It was definitely a challenge. So yeah, it was a completely different story, obviously. And when he passed, it, you know, they took a lot of time back in the writers' room, and trying to figure out where does the story go from here without the Black Panther. Um, and for from my perspective, we had started the casting process already, um, but only on a few roles, and they were roles that we were pretty certain were going to stay in. But it definitely does change things when you have, you know, people that you like for a certain role, but then you're not going to cast them for a while. They could take other work, and then you're back to the drawing board when the time comes to actually cast whatever role they were up for. So, um, yeah, it was challenging, but because we had only started a little bit, it wasn't like super uh, crazy.
Makes sense to me.
Wow. So it's sort of in the same vein, but it's a slight left turn here because we're going to be making a little bit of a comparison. I'm kind of curious what uh, the process is like casting for an indie film versus casting for something like Wakanda Forever, right? Which is this huge production. You know, like what maybe some of the fundamental differences are, or if there are things that are maybe unexpected differences.
For the like big budget Marvel stuff, there's always so many people, like the chain of command is so long, um, that no decision is ever just like a one person signs off and that's that. Um, so we had, you know, the director and then the producer, but then for the Marvel specifically, we had the director, producer, and then above them we had all the execs at Marvel that would weigh in. So you could have, we really like this person for this role, we present them, and then two people like him and one person's like, I absolutely hate him. So then you have to decide whether you're going to try to fight for that person, and maybe you pull a really good demo reel for them to try to like sell whoever's on the fence. And that's where we come in to do that and to sell the actor. Um, and for the indies, it's a little more intimate. Like the one that I just wrapped on, there was no studio attached to it. So it was just the producer and the director. She was, you know, she was also the writer, director, producer, and then there was a second executive producer. Um, and so she was basically the sign off. If she liked the person, we were good to go. There was no higher person to pass it along to. So it's just indies are they're more intimate, um, but with that its own set of challenges. Um, Whereas the Marvel stuff, it kind of runs very smoothly. Um, because it's just a well-oiled machine, and on indies you could be pulling in from freelancers all over the place that haven't worked together. So it's kind of, it's just a different system of how everybody works
Huh.
together.
I'm I'm curious if so you say that there's sort of like this chain of command which feels, very corporate and makes sense because, Marvel is a very corporate entity. It's owned by Disney. Um is there like a level of role that you don't have to run by the higher ups? Like, is it sort of like, okay, if I'm casting this sort of side character, we get to have the final say, but if we're looking at like the lead roles, those are the things that we have to really check in with like the execs at Marvel? Or is it like every single casting decision has to go up through that ladder and be signed off on?
It really depends. um there were some films where every single like day player, which is just, you know, like a waitress at a coffee shop that you have to cast, that has one line. But um for certain films, those all had to be approved. um but then there were other films where, like, approved meaning they had to go all the way up to like the president of Marvel.
That's
um
crazy.
yeah, yeah. And there were some films, though, depending on who the executive producer was, they could sometimes give the final sign off without having to run it up to like the trio at Marvel, which was like the three heads of the different departments. We called them the trio.
Sure.
And you sometimes didn't have to run it all the way up, but that was those most times we did have to. It was only like, I can think of maybe 2 films where we didn't have to do that for all of the roles.
Wow. I mean, that shows what a crazy amount of creative control the folks at Marvel have. I mean, I guess in my brain it made sense that, they would want to okay the lead actors, but the fact that they really have to look at everyone who says a line in the movie, that's crazy.
Yeah, and sometimes, they're so busy that like they may not actually be looking at the tape that we're sending them. That's like, here's the person who's the select choice for, or the director's choice for this role. Are we good to, make an offer? Um Sometimes they don't watch the clip where we send their audition. They just are
Sign.
like, yeah, good to go. Um but I'm sure that there were times where they do watch them. I just, we don't know. They just write back,
Yeah.
good to go.
Yeah. Wow. That's something that I didn't know. So thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah, it's funny. Most people think that there's like a common misconception that casting directors just like have the say, and like we just pick people and then people are in the films. It's like, you know, we're always the first to blame for bad casting, but it's like, we don't have the final say. We never do. We push who we like, and then from there, our, it's not up to us always.
Yeah.
I guess to kind of like piggyback off of that before asking a more um, scripted question, would kind
Off
of
script.
be
Off script.
off script, right? Is there, so you mentioned having to do these reels for people and stuff like that, just like for that final say. Is there ever like any additional like social vetting, or like anybody that's like, we can't work with this person, like we need to stay like a mile away kind of thing? Or like does that ever like happen, and is that like a part of this whole process as well?
Yeah, actually. And I think more so in recent years because of like, the world becoming just more, I don't want to even use the term woke, but like,
I feel
um,
like just like more transparent, and like if you're a
yeah,
bad person, you will be found out about.
yeah, yeah, that's a good way to say it. But that's definitely something that we look at. The project I was just on, actually, everybody that we made an offer to, we did a Google search. I mean, we weren't, doing background checks on everyone, but just a quick Google search to see, like, is the first result that comes up, this person is, a wife beater or something, like it just to make sure, because there's been tricky situations where an offer was made and then come to find out the person like is really problematic. Um, so that is definitely something that we look at. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, and there's like, and there's also, just within the industry, it's like directors might have people that they never want to work with because
Hmm.
of a past experience, or um producer might be like, no, I hear they're really difficult, or and there's also casting where if you are a casting director of note, your opinion may be also valued in terms of like having intel on all of these actors and um knowing them from various projects. You may be able to say to the director, this person, if they're a kid, like this person has very difficult parents that, maybe might not be the best on set, if like that the director is really not someone who handles stage moms well or something. um
Hmm.
but again, we always have the actor's best interest in mind, so there's not too much of the like poo-pooing, unless it's really something that's like, you got to know about this.
That's totally fair. And that's kind of why I was like wondering with, like you're saying, like there's like the trio that ultimately is signing off on this stuff. So like I'm like assuming that like that is like also part of what maybe they have to weigh sometimes. So that's kind of just where I was following up with that. But like, I also didn't realize how long you've been in the industry. And so this is kind of like a fun question for me that I was like kind of actually like thinking up earlier today whenever we were kind of talking about what we were going to be interviewing you on. And you lived through the pandemic like everybody, right? And there was a lot of like technology advancements in terms of like working and being able to accomplish things while being stuck in the house. Um, we get a lot of like the other interviews that we've done are from people that have had like, 20 or more years, 30 years, 40 years sometimes, like experience in the industry itself, and have seen like, the advancement from like running to payphones to make important phone calls and pagers and shit to like today. And so like I just kind of want like a more I guess millennial man like perspective on like how just like the job has changed through technological advances and stuff like that, and like how has it like made your job like easier, more difficult, etc.
Yeah. Technology is interesting. um I would say that overall, I think it's been very helpful in my industry. Like, specifically during the pandemic, like we kept working,
Hmm.
um and we implemented the Zoom auditions, and that kind of stuck around. And people today, um, a lot of offices are doing the Zoom auditions still. And there's been some backlash about that, but it's because we're still in a pandemic, And we see hundreds of people a week in person, and they're strangers in a small room with no masks. And the Zoom auditions have really allowed us to see tons more people than we could ever see in person also. Um, and then there's self-tapes that we've been using a lot, where, you know, you can get a self-tape from anywhere. People in we had self-tapes from India for this last project. It just has made a difference in terms of like accessibility and how we're able to see so many people that we couldn't see before. You know, my old boss, she's been in the business forever, and she used to have to go through headshots that were mailed, like just stacks and stacks of headshots. And now everything is just emailed over. You can go on IMDb and look up somebody's credits and their resume. Um, so I think that the technological advances that happened specifically during the pandemic did benefit casting pretty heavily.
That's awesome.
Do you find that it is easier to get a read on a virtual audition than it is on an in-person audition? Because, you know, if you're doing a self-tape, you can tape as many times as you want to try to get like the best take that you can get. Whereas if you're in a room or even on a Zoom interview, you really get that one shot. Have there ever been situations where maybe you cast someone, you're like, oh wow, that was like really their best work, and maybe this was not the right person? I mean, I assume you have callbacks, that sort of thing, so it's not like, yeah, I guess I'm just curious if you find that there is like any sort of negative piece in terms of seeing things virtually as opposed to in person.
I think there's pros and cons to both. I think there's always something to be said about seeing people in person and getting a read. You'll never be able to get a full take on someone just through a screen. So the person-to-person interaction is very valuable in the industry and in casting, because it gives us a chance to meet this person, see how they are in a room, how you know, they work with the space, and then give the feedback to the director if, you know, if they ask. So I think that is an element that is missed. But the Zoom auditions, because sometimes you'll start with a self-tape, and yes, people can do as many takes as they want and send in their best work. But from there, there's usually a process of coming back in and doing a, you know, a live Zoom audition, or sometimes it'll even be callbacks in person, and it'll be just a very small contained group, or a director session, or just like a meeting with the director, and you're not doing any audition material. So it's never just like we're making a decision off of this self-tape, because we know you're going to send in your best work, or you may be a person that just doesn't really do self-tapes very well, and we want to see you, like we want to see you in the room, we want to see how you take direction, or maybe like you didn't send in the you might have made a choice in the self-tape, but it wasn't the choice that the director is looking to see in the scene. So we bring you back because we like what you did and want to see you just do it differently. I think that there's pros and cons to both of them.
That makes sense. And I mean, I do think that what you said about accessibility is really important, where if you are going to end up bringing people in to have them in a room at some point, kind of being able to have that wider talent pool, and then say, okay, I wouldn't have gotten this person into audition in person in New York, but now I know that I would like to have them come in and like do a callback or whatever. Probably is better for you because you get to see more people and get to have that wider range of
Yeah.
I almost said applicants. That's not right. Candidates. I mean, I guess it's sort of applying, right? You're applying for a job in a very weird way.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, you get to see a wide variety of people who potentially could be a good fit for the role.
Yeah.
So I guess kind of changing gears a little bit, what are some of the common misconceptions that you see people who maybe aren't in the industry have around the whole filmmaking process? It could be casting, it could be something else related to just the creation of film and television.
So it's kind of what I touched on before with people thinking that like casting directors have all this power in the process, and that we just make choices and then it happens. Um, I think what people maybe don't realize is how collaborative it all is. There's really not one person making all of the decisions. Like the director ultimately has the most power, but they will ask for the producer's assistance, or you know, like on Black Panther, um Ryan Coogler would always ask Sarah, my boss, like her opinion on whoever the actor was we were looking at. Um, so I think that people just have maybe thought that making a movie is very black and white, which is surprising because I don't think it looks anything like that. But yeah, it's not. There's so much that goes into it, um, from whatever department you're in.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that that's kind of a common theme that we hear from everyone we interview who have all worked in various pieces of the sort of creative process. I mean, we talked to Gary last month. He does PR for actually some of the same films that you do casting on. And so it's really interesting to sort of hear your perspective and then hear Gary's perspective and how they're all just like these little pieces of this much larger puzzle that it's a lot of fucking work.
Yeah, that's a good. It's a puzzle. It's
Yeah.
this. Yeah, we're all just little pieces of this big puzzle, and then it comes out to a little screen near you. Um, yeah.
Yeah.
So speaking of being little pieces in a puzzle, what advice would you have for folks who are looking to get into casting? Are there maybe some experiential things in people's backgrounds that are advantageous to have, or maybe like mindset to approach it with?
I would say that anybody who is coming from like I came from an acting background, and I think that has proven to be one of the most like valuable things I have in this job, because it allows me to have empathy for the people that I'm, auditioning, because I've been on the other side. So if they're nervous, I can help them kind of relax or use different tactics to like loosen them up. So I would say, and along that vein, like just having empathy and being able to read people. And if you are someone who isn't in the industry at all and wants to get into casting, I would say just watch a bunch of movies and take your notes. Take notes on what you like about the acting, um, or what you like about the characters, what you like about the story, what you don't like about the story, what you don't like about the characters, and what would you have done differently, slash, if you could cast the movie, who would you cast? Because I think just getting your brain working in that kind of way is the first step if you don't have any sort of background in the industry already.
That's cool. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and I know you mean, I mean, you talked about having empathy and being on that side of the table for your work, but then if you were kind of like digging a little bit deeper into that thought, what other important traits have you been able to find within yourself that have allowed you to really excel at your job? This always makes everybody go, hmm. And I find that so amazing.
Well, it's a good question, but it's like one I don't think about often.
That's fair.
I would say, wow, what would I say?
I guess like what is there something in the way that you were like educated in acting specifically that you are now able to kind of carry into this side of it, where like you notice like smaller nuances of certain things because you recognize these same traits that you may have tried to carry in acting or anything like that, and like, and is that like, are any of those types of things kind of like what you're looking for too?
Okay. Yeah, I think that I'm always impressed by actors who have done the homework,
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
because that's something that I was trained to do in school was, you know, you have to read the play. You have to do the homework. You know, script analysis was really important. Um, and so when there's an actor that has very clearly done that, they've read the scene, they've analyzed the scene, they've come in with their own ideas about the scene, even if they're not, you know, because you don't, with Marvel specifically, everything is so secret and locked, like tight. So you'll never get a script. You will just get the scene. And a lot of times it'll be a really scrubbed down scene and it won't have a lot of the like pertinent information because it's spoilers. Um, so whenever an actor like made choices and came in very clearly having done the homework, I was always impressed by that, and I still continue to be. If you know, they some people wear costumes, you don't have to. We never require you to like dress for the scene, but sometimes if the scene is like a period piece and you just so happen to have clothes that fit that, then it's always a nice touch.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
I will also say, I think, Anissa, from what I've seen of you and your work, you have to have the capacity to be juggling a lot of different things at the time, and you're wrong, but I feel like you always have a lot of balls in the air, and you have to stay on top of things and have to be very organized. Okay, Ben and Anissa, I wasn't trying to go somewhere like that, but that's fine. No, but you have to be able to like keep a lot of things in your brain at once and to be really organized, and like you're not just working on one role at a time, you're not even necessarily working on one film at a time.
Right.
And I think that you have the ability to stay on top of a lot of small things, which I think is one of the reasons why you are successful. And I'm just saying that as an outside perspective. You can tell me if you disagree, but that is something that I have noticed.
No, I think you're spot on with that. Casting is, we are are basically, I think we're producers because we are just on top of so many things, and a lot of it is just like making sure that this person has done this thing or has this person reached out to this person. Just a lot of wrangling and making sure that everything's getting done, because if it doesn't get done, the movie doesn't get made.
Yep.
So I mean, yeah, you've seen me in my work element, and it
Yeah.
is a lot of just like being on top of this thing or that thing.
Getting on the phone with someone's agent or whatever.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a lot of handling little things and then really big things, and also prioritizing, because a lot of times you don't know which thing is more important. And that just comes with time, just and practice, being able to figure out like how to compartmentalize each thing and place your focus appropriately. So
Yeah, that makes sense to me. And I guess I kind of mentioned this. I was saying like calling agents, but what is the difference between a talent agent and a casting director, and why are both of those roles important?
So one doesn't exist without the other. We need talent agents and they need us, because what the agents do is scout the talent. They go out to showcases. They are the ones who are signing the clients, they're signing the actors, and then they present them to the casting directors. Um and like, maybe they signed someone who's young and up and coming and is going to be a huge star, but we don't know who they are yet. They've just seen them at a showcase or something. And they tell us, hey, I just signed this really awesome person. They're going to be a star. Please, will you read them for this role? And then we do. And it helps us learn about a lot of the new talent also, without without going to the showcases. We still go, but um the agent, like, that's what they do specifically, is like source the talent. And then we are the ones that then get the talent in front of the directors. We do the auditions, we wrangle the self tapes, we do the callbacks, we work with the talent then from that point on. But the agent, like, they are the agent for the client. It's like that is a relationship. We don't handle any of the like the personal stuff with the clients, or with the actors. They're not our clients, but we are very much for the actor as it pertains to the project, whereas the agent is for the actor.
Yeah, that totally makes sense to me.
Yeah, checks out.
Yeah, everybody kind of confuses the two. Maybe not everybody, but a lot of people do confuse the two. But yeah, if you just think about it as like the casting director is for the actor while in the movie, or as it pertains to the movie, and the agent is like always for the actor.
And the agents set up the auditions, right? Like the casting directors generally aren't the ones who are reaching out to the actors to ask them to come in and read. It's usually like the agents working with the filmmakers, correct?
So how it works is the casting will reach out to the agent, or vice
Mm,
versa, to set up
got it.
auditions. So that's another facet that, yeah, I didn't mention, is we don't talk directly to the actor. Our correspondence about the actor happens through the agent.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
there's very few times where we're going directly to an actor, and it's if they don't have an agent or a manager. But 98% of the time, it all is filtered through the agent. Um, yeah.
Yeah. Makes sense to me.
So this is not the question that I'm about to ask next, but it is one that I think there's a lot of misconception about, and I think one of the things that we're trying to do with this show generally is try to like shed light on the things that people don't necessarily have a good understanding of, or maybe there's sort of this common knowledge that is in fact incorrect. And I think a lot of people have this idea that the agent is really there to sort of like skim off the top and just like take a cut from actors without really showing up in a lot of ways. And it seems like the reality of the situation is that like you as a casting director are in contact with these agents a lot, and like people are really, you know, maybe there are some folks who represent themselves, but really having an agent out there who's sort of like doing, I guess, what maybe you used to do, which is like actually pound the pavement and go like try to, you know, make connections. Like this person is really sort of serving as that intermediary to make sure that they get opportunities.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay.
A good agent. There are a lot of bad agents, but a good agent definitely is always trying to get their client work. And you know, part of that is, yes, because if your client gets work, you also get a cut, but we're all trying to make a living. So but there is a sense of pride that comes with like your client booking something, though. But yes, we talk to agents all day long. Like the majority of my job is talking to agents. Maybe not the majority, but a lot of it is talking to agents. So people think that, you know, oh, I don't need an agent, I can just do it myself. There are times where that is the case, and that has happened for some people, but it's the exception to the rule.
Can you actually do me a favor and explain, because I know this confuses tons of people, myself included sometimes, the difference between an agent and a manager?
Yes.
Yeah, what is it? I genuinely have no idea. What?
I'll be honest, I assumed they were kind of one and the same, so this is going to be news to me too.
They aren't.
So they're similar, and I'm going to be honest, a lot of times up until recently I was getting them confused, and I'm wondering if I'm going to get them confused now. So managers are more oh man, you know, why'd you have to ask me this question?
I'm sorry.
God damn, Katie. No, there's some specific things that I knew at one point, but the difference was, well, I do know that only agents can negotiate deals. Managers can't negotiate deals. At least for actors. The agent gets the offer. The agent has to negotiate the offer, unless, you know, they bring an attorney into it. Managers, from my understanding, are more of like the day-to-day sort of scheduling, handling the actors kind of like overall life in the industry, whereas the agent seems to be a little more specific to just like the work.
Yeah.
You know, like the project.
My understanding is that, and again, like, correct me if I'm getting this wrong, but from what I understand, having grown up with a father that had both, the agent is the one who goes out and like gets you, in this case, auditions, or you know, gets you in touch with those casting directors, gets you in the room, kind of manages your professional ability to get seen, and then kind of helps negotiate the contracts when you get an offer. Whereas a manager, I believe, is the person who, it's like, say you have a gig coming up, they're gonna be like, all right, this is where you need to be at this time. Here's the way that, like, you know, like if someone needs to call you and get in touch with you for something, the manager is gonna be the one who kind of handles that interaction. I think.
No,
is that right? Okay.
Yeah.
Because like I also get them confused.
It's because it's confusing. And when we have to, like, we do a lot of avail checks, and a lot of times we need to get really specific details about the schedule of the actor. If, like, you know, if we're checking a comedian and he's going to be on tour, we ask the agent, but then we usually have to go to the manager to get the in-depth details of, like, what is the date that he's doing, like what state is he in for these dates of the tour. and the managers have, you know, the nuances and
Manager's almost like a personal assistant, but like with way more power.
yeah. I don't know if they would like to hear that their
No, I
personal
guess that's not fair.
assistants.
That's not really what I don't. You know what I mean? They like manage schedules and they know where you're supposed. I'm sorry to all the managers out
Might
there.
you refer to them as somebody who manages
They
things?
manage the stuff. Yeah,
Oh,
yeah. That's what I'm
oh,
trying
you
to
might be
say.
onto something there.
Well, then, God.
You know, I don't like to toot my own horn or anything, but
I'm not even gonna ask this, but I know that there are also handlers, and I don't even want to start with the difference between a handler and a manager because I don't have the answer to that, and I don't know if you guys...
one of them
Isn't
uses their
that just
hands and the other
like-
one uses a calendar.
I was gonna say, isn't a handler just the person who is like literally walking the person through life and like deciding who they can and cannot talk to? Like, isn't that like what a handler basically? Like, yo, you're not allowed to talk to them right now.
I guess that's fair.
I
The
feel like
person's
that
like
would be,
physically
like-
there.
Yeah,
Security?
or PR? Like
I don't fucking know.
handler, if you telling you can't talk
You know
to
what?
someone, that feels like PR.
We'll get somebody who's
Like,
a handler in here.
like
We'll interview
I-
them, we'll figure it out.
Have you guys ever watched the show Veep?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like Gary, like his job is like the handler. Like he's the guy with the bag, but like he's also like whispering in her ear all the time, like, "Oh, this is like the ambassador of, you know, Saskatoon or whatever." Like,
I feel like handlers are more physically present. That like managers kind of do things in the background and have a lot of different clients, and handlers are like in the room with you being like, this is the Prime Minister of Sweden or whatever the fuck it is.
yeah, like
And
here's
if-
3
if-
things you need to know. Like, like don't use
You
your
know,
left hand. Like,
If only there was a show where they, I don't know, like dug into what people do and how the fuck their jobs work or something like that. That'd be cool.
We'll
Maybe
have
we
to
could find
talk
out.
to a handler and a manager. We will have an
Yeah.
agent on
Yeah.
next month, so that's good. Well, actually,
all right.
that's it. She's a child star turned agent, so we're gonna have to talk to her about acting in films and TV, and also about
Cool.
being an
Katie,
agent.
this episode is about Anissa,
I'm
so if you could
sorry,
please
I
rein it in.
just-
Thank you.
It's fine.
So,
Someone ask another
Anissa,
question.
Right, jeez.
I'm
Anissa,
sorry.
lots of. I'm gonna just mute Katie. I didn't touch it. So Katie and I, and maybe Zeki, you also have heard this at some point or another. We have heard stories from you about aspiring actors reaching out to you, you know, directly, like your personal Instagram or you know whatever.
She gets a lot of those DMs.
Which is maybe not the ideal way to go about doing that. And so,
Quickly
you know, if you
erasing
were
all of my
to-
messages.
So you know, if there was a way for, you know, sort of, I guess like a proper avenue for folks to get themselves out there and to make contacts with casting directors to like, you know, like you're trying to get your foot in the door as an aspiring actor. That's very reasonable. Like, what are the better ways or the more effective ways of doing that?
I would say that instead of trying to beeline for the casting director, put your efforts more towards getting representation. So getting an agent or a manager, you know, because if you have an agent, or I'm sorry, if you have a manager but not an agent, the manager is going to be able to get you, you know, the auditions as well. So I would say, you know, put your efforts there. It's hard to get a representation though. So I understand why, you know, people send me their resumes and their headshots. I will say that every casting office for the most part has a submissions email address that you can send your stuff to. And it's not like, you know, you're throwing it into the dark abyss. People do look at the submissions emails. And like I know, for instance, on the last project I was on, we did a lot of outreach. We did so much outreach and you know, to just like small communities in India and Germany, where else? So many places. And those were for anybody. I was posting on Facebook groups. So there are times where if you're an aspiring actor and you don't have representation and you want to get your foot in the door, look for those opportunities where there's going to be an open call. Or we made Instagram pages sometimes that were catered just to the project and the role we were looking for, and you could submit that way. So there are opportunities, but I would definitely say spamming a casting director's personal Instagram is not the best way to go about it.
I would say more than not the best way. I'd say it's
I'm
a
trying
quick.
I'm trying to be nice because I do know I get it. I get
Don't
that,
fucking do that. It's annoying and it's a great way to not get hired.
but I get it because
Anissa's coming in strong with the empathy, and I'm coming in strong with the don't fucking do that shit.
Like, I get shooting your shot, but also you have your own personal life, and people should also respect that.
yeah, like it's one thing to send emails to my work address where, that's one thing, but it's the personal Instagram DMs that's a lot for me. But
And I mean, also, has DMing you on Instagram ever resulted in someone being seen for an audition?
no.
Yeah. Okay. That's
Oh,
it.
there you have it. I mean,
that's really all
I
you
think
need to hear.
if that doesn't clear it up, I don't know what does, right? Like, you can spend as much time sending DMs as you want. Don't do that, to be clear. But in all likelihood, it's not going to work, and all that time is now wasted, where you could have been putting that into time spent either improving your skills and working on getting a manager, or if you're already in a position where you're like pretty comfortable in your skills, which like
you can always be working
you
on
probably
your
should
skills.
never be. Like you could have been putting that time into something that was going to yield results as opposed to just bothering somebody
Or finding representation. You
Yeah.
know, like
yeah.
Yep.
that person will definitely know the proper channels to go through.
Yeah. Well, and there's also, I know that there are a lot of networking sort of like, I don't know what they're actually called, but like things, events
That's
that
the
people go
professional
to.
term, right? Networking
I
things.
believe they call
Yes.
them
They call them
mixers.
things. Oh, is that maybe that's it?
I don't know. What's been like the most surprising part of your job? I mean, like something that you kind of would have like never expected, that maybe even something when you took like your first role in casting, like or later, that like sometimes these happy little accidents happen months into the job, years into the job.
I think something that I didn't expect, or maybe not that I didn't I didn't expect this, was kind of how much work the casting director actually does to keep the film afloat. Because I came into, just my network television internship, just, setting people up for auditions. But it wasn't until I started to really like get into it as a career that I started realizing our hands are in all of the pots all of the time, and we are just constantly like trying to keep the movie moving forward. Moving. But no, like we genuinely do so much, and I think it's very sad that casting is not recognized the way that all these other departments are, because we are crucial to the film, and without a casting director on the film, like it's it's probably not going to be good, because we are vital.
If it happens at all.
Right.
Yeah.
So, it's because we kind of are the liaison between all of the departments. Everyone runs to casting when they have a question about things. And it's because we are right at the front line. That's like, we talk to the director and the producer all the time. So without us, we we have all the information most times, or at least the information to get you to the person you need to get the answer you need. So it's like, yeah, I didn't expect
Kind of the
that.
glue.
Yeah.
Yeah, it kind of sounds to me almost like your position is almost like the nervous system of a production, because you kind of like are the one that has the feelers out and is able to be like, oh, this needs attention over here, and then that needs to be like taken care of before this other thing can move on. So is that more accurate, I guess?
Yeah. Yeah. I would say personally, because I am nervous, I'm anxious all the time. But
We are killing it today,
But,
folks.
Yeah, it's going great.
hey, you asked me to come on here.
Yeah, we did.
and we regret nothing.
Yeah, nothing has been regretted so far.
Yeah, we are the nervous system. And the glue, like Katie said. I truly believe that we keep things moving, because so many times productions have just come to a standstill because like this person wasn't talking to this person about this thing that could have just been solved a week ago, but instead they just weren't doing it. And so casting, like, knock knock, hey, has anybody talked to this person? And then finally we get the ball rolling again. So yeah.
So what I'm hearing is that you are the mommies of the production.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I feel like that's unfair because mommies do everything. You know what I mean? So like,
that's what I'm saying. It's unfair. Casting directors do everything.
I feel
we
just
do
like,
lots of things
yeah.
for little recognition, which, like, you know, a lot of times just getting the person that we want in the role is enough of a reward. Like, it is very rewarding to see someone that like you fought tooth and nail to get in this role. But, you know, category at the Oscars would be nice too. So
That's fair. I don't know if you are like under kind of any kind of NDAs or anything, but is there a specific role that you fought for casting that made it into the film that you're especially proud of? And if you can't say, that's totally fine.
I have a few. I don't know if I can say them. I mean, the movies are out. I guess I could. The villain in the newest Black Panther, Tenoch Huerta, he was someone that we all fought for, and like put together like this really awesome demo reel for him, where each moment was like crafted, and it ended up like really being persuasive, and we were able to get him.
I think you made a great choice.
Yeah, he was awesome.
You did.
Yeah.
That was a really good choice.
It was worth the effort y'all put into fighting for him.
Yeah.
He's so great. And we were all just kind of like, it's got to be him. And yeah, so I think that's probably the one that I'm the most proud of, because we all were like going to bat for him, all being, you know, in my office who was working on the project. There were three of us that were fighting for him. So
that's awesome.
I know, Katie, you're kind of up next with the scripted stuff, but I am kind of curious, Anissa, do the actors ever know how hard you fight for them sometimes? Like if there's like somebody who you guys are really pulling for, do they ever like find out about how, you know, how much effort you guys put into ensuring that they get the role? Because I think, you know, obviously if you're an actor, you have an agent, you know that your agent is going to bat for you. But is it as clear when the casting directors are like, this is my person and I will die on this hill? Like, do they get to hear about that later?
Sometimes.
Okay.
At the Doctor Strange after party and the Black Panther after party, we got to speak to Tenoch and told him like how much we all fought for him. And then in Doctor Strange, the Zochi, who plays America Chavez, we all fought for it. was specifically I was fighting. And we told her. So they do find out, but it's usually because someone on the team tells them. It's not really ever like a
an official process.
Yeah.
It's more of just sort of like,
yeah,
oh, I saw you at the after party. Like, let me tell you how
Right,
hard we
like-
worked to get you in this role, kind of thing.
yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Hmm.
Cool. So I want to just take a minute to talk very briefly about the writer's strike. You don't need to get personal, but I don't think a lot of people understand the way that the strike impacts the entirety of the creative process. What is going on with casting right now and with the sort of like no end in sight at the moment for this strike?
It's definitely been difficult. Because our jobs are contingent on there being new projects being written. A lot of people in the casting world right now that are, primarily film and television are out of work. Because without new projects, there's no new actors, there's no new cast. So it's definitely like every part of the industry, film and TV, has been hit and is being affected by the strike in some way, shape, or form. It's not even just like the writers. It's from what I understand, it's everyone. But casting, yeah, our jobs are pretty. They hinge on new projects. So unless you're in theater is booming right now. So
That's fair. And I mean, the majority of casting directors are freelance, right?
Yeah.
So I think that that's something else that we didn't really get a chance to talk about, but it's not like you're salaried working with like, I mean, I'm sure that there are some jobs that exist that are like that, but
That's
for the most part,
casting
it sounds like,
admin.
yeah, there you go.
They're with the
But like
studio
casting,
and employed through the studio, but like independent casting directors are always freelance. So
so that kind of adds to the whole uncertainty of writer strikes.
tell me about it.
Oh,
It's
God,
fine.
yeah.
Once it's over, I'm gonna have so many projects. I'm just gonna speak that in.
Yeah, we won't see you for like a year and a half while you're busy doing all the work that is currently on hold.
Well, that's simply not true.
We have record of it. She's committed. It's on video, it's on audio. We have witnesses in chat. Bam. I do have I guess like a final official question, but I have like a second one after that. Actually, you know what? I'm going to keep the official question for after because I think it's a good one to end on. I'm kind of curious because I know we've talked a little bit about like how productions, and it's come up in a couple of different conversations, how productions take a lot more time than I think a lot of folks realize up front. And I'm curious, like how long on average it takes you to fully cast. I guess in this case, let's stick with something like Marvel, right? How long does it take you for you to cast a Marvel movie? Obviously, an indie film it could be a little bit shorter, maybe not as many characters, less also oversight because you have, you don't have sort of that whole chain of command that you're responsible to.
So with Marvel, it's actually it's funny because my boss was well, she has an overall contract with Marvel. So at any point in time, they could give us the script for the next film and ask for a list for the new villain. And we would start drafting, ideas and getting them a list. But that project could not shoot for a whole 6 months. It was just kind of like a rotating cycle with Marvel. Because we would usually try to cast the leads as soon as possible because we always try to get like A-listers and their schedules book up, and we need to know kind of what our options are so that sooner we can get someone attached, the better. So I would say with Marvel, it's a little trickier to just kind of even say how long it takes. Like, I mean, Black Panther, because of Chadwick's passing, took over a year and a half. And then some of the other projects, like I remember Shang-Chi was pretty long. Eternals was super long. Yeah, so Marvel, it's trickier because we were always just working on different projects at once, but maybe not all of them were needing our attention. We just needed to make a list for one of these, but it doesn't shoot for another 7 months. So it depends. With the independents, it's a little more cut and dry. Like, you get this many months. Like the one I was just on, we started in September, we wrapped in February. And that was because we pushed. So that's another thing. Your project can push, and then it can push for 2 months, and then maybe 3 months. Generally, you get like a 3 to 4 month shoot. And casting is in the beginning. We're not really there once shooting commences. We'll come back sometimes for like reshoots, but most times we sign off before production, like the shooting starts.
That makes sense.
Makes sense, yeah.
Tough to still be casting while you are actively shooting the movie.
Yeah, I mean, it happens. It happens on the last one. I mean, we were casting up until they went to Germany. So, yeah. It really just depends.
Have you ever had to recast in the middle of filming? Like, something either happens with an actor, or you realize that there's like a new role that they're going to write in. I know like changes to script happen all the time on set. So I wasn't sure if you'd ever been in a situation where things had to change casting wise as well.
Yeah, there were a lot of times where there'd be a new scene, and we'd find out about it, the more time we have to prepare, the better. But there were some times where we'd find out about it like 2 days before, and we'd have to like get people in the role that was shooting in 2 days. So
oh god,
that's fun.
Yeah, those are not the highlights. Those are definitely the low points of the job, but you make it work. People, at the end of the day, someone's gonna get cast. The movie's gonna get made. So
it's fair.
Before Ben wraps things up, I guess I have just like one small additional question, kind of building off of everything we've talked about in the last couple. And you can speak to this however you can, I guess, if you can't for whatever reason. But when it comes to working on more of the independent side, is there that same pressure of the writer's strike whenever these productions are not necessarily associated with like a major studio or something like that? Like, I guess, is there more union presence or less union presence on an independent film, and does that affect that whole, side of what you do?
I think there's still this like the same level of union presence on an independent, possibly even more so, because everyone is a freelancer, and a lot of times on independents, like, you haven't worked with any of these people before, so like you are making sure that you don't get like screwed over.
No, I just wanted to like clear that up, because like, you never know, like, with people's misconceptions about that kind of a thing. Like, they might be like, oh, independent, they don't have to abide by whatever rules or whatever solidarity is being shown throughout an industry. So I was just kind of curious.
Yeah, that's the best answer that I have, and I think only because I haven't actually had to deal with that yet, so I don't really even know.
That's fair. No, that's totally fair. I mean, when was the last writer's strike? Was it like 2008?
2007, I think.
2007?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
I mean,
so I don't know.
I was still in high school at that moment. Like, so I was not, I was like barely even aware that it was happening,
Yeah, I
But
wasn't
I
aware.
remember.
Katie,
I
yeah, but
was very aware.
well, I mean, Katie, I imagine you would be more aware of the situation. I just knew it was like a thing, and like some shows that I enjoyed weren't going to be produced because of it, which like for good reason. People need to fight for what they want.
I mean, writers are totally overrated, though. AI is going to do all of it for us, and it's going to tell
God.
amazing stories, and we're not going to need to pay any of those people
Okay.
anymore.
Okay.
Yeah, as soon as they figure out how to make fingers, we don't even need real people anymore.
True.
They just need to figure out fingers. The one thing.
And teeth.
Oh,
yeah,
is teeth a
teeth
problem too?
Teeth
are,
is a problem.
they end up with
Oh
like
my
1.5 million
gosh.
teeth. It's wild.
But
well, barring any additional questions from either one of you, I would like to know what your dream project is. Is it TV, or is it a movie? Is there like something, maybe an extant series or property that would particularly like to work on?
So if you had asked me this question last year, my answer would have been to work on one of Ava DuVernay's projects.
You did that.
But I did that. So now I don't know what my answer is anymore. I think still in that same vein of like, I love all of the work that she's done, and I think I just would want to keep working on projects like that. There's more people than just her that are doing that right now, but like just telling the stories that resonate with me, that I feel are important to tell.
When you say stories that resonate with you that you feel are important, what does that mean? Are you talking about like diverse casting? Or okay.
Yeah, just like all I keep thinking about is like the show that Ava did, When They See Us. Like that was like peak what I would want to work on. I was not on that, but stuff like that.
I have actually kind of a follow-up question. As someone who is not white,
Me?
have you have you
Wait, what?
No way.
How have you found
Anissa?
trying to ask the question, god damn it.
I just don't understand.
I'm the whitest
thought you
one
had
here.
I just thought you had a cool tan, dude.
Have you found that the industry is ready for more diverse casting? Have you found that you have had to advocate for that at all in the rooms that you've been in, or do you feel like we're moving in a direction where that is becoming a bit more the norm?
I like to think that we're moving in a direction where that's becoming more of the norm, but there are those people in Hollywood that like their definition of a beautiful like a female protagonist has to be like a beautiful white female, like bombshell. I don't know. I like that still exists, that mentality. So trying to break that, I think, is the next step in like realizing that you can have a beautiful protagonist that isn't white, or maybe isn't, I don't know, just being more inclusionary. Yeah, so we're getting there, maybe. I'm trying anyway, So
Hey, we need people like you to do that. Otherwise, it won't happen.
yeah. And in the casting
Very
world
true.
specifically, there's not a whole lot of people of color, actually. We're there, but it's predominantly a whiter field.
That's really interesting too, because I feel like there's so much conversation around like diversity and inclusion, and I don't think I've ever heard anyone talking about the people who are actually casting the films needing to be diverse as well, which I think is super important.
Yeah.
But just I mean, I think it's kind of a byproduct of casting being so overlooked as a discipline.
Yeah.
But also, if it's an overlooked discipline and diversity isn't a high priority there, that kind of says a lot about the mentality behind the scenes in a way.
Mhm.
Yep. Yeah.
Especially when trying to identify, you know, if you're trying to cast in a way that is like actually inclusive, but you're only doing it from one perspective, it becomes very difficult to actually be inclusive because you're, you know, like your perception on what does or does not make somebody fit for the role, you know, like for example, my perception as a straight white dude would be totally different from like your perception.
Mhm.
And if I'm trying to cast someone who, you know, ideally is going to resonate with you, the way that I view that character or how you should cast for that character is probably not going to be the viewpoint from which to actually make that decision, because I don't know your life, right? Like
Yeah.
I mean, I know your life personally, but you know, like
I
you know,
know
your
everything about
experiences.
you.
I have followed you since kindergarten.
Weird.
That's extra
Y'all
weird.
should have seen Anissa's
I'm-
Twitter back in kindergarten. She was just going off on people constantly. It
My
was
Twitter,
wild.
Anissa 056721.
I was, you know, when I
Tagging that announcement was one of the funniest things. I was like, "This is so good." Plunking in the numbers.
when I like was like making the tweets or whatever, and I was like, "Is this really?" No. Yeah, it is.
No, you know it's Anissa's profile because her singular tweet is just a picture of my face.
Yeah, it's like, oh, this has to be. You're right. That's
It's
exactly.
the right one, but
I like scrolled down. I'm like, this can't be her. And then I like scrolled down. I'm like, no, this is her.
I don't use Twitter.
So
Oh,
all
gosh.
you viewers, do not try to slide into her DMs via Twitter. Will not
Or
get
do,
you anywhere.
because you won't get a response.
Yeah, if you want Anissa to cast you in films, absolutely slide to her Twitter DMs. That is the best place to go because she will not check them.
was casting here on Twitter.
Same with all you.
But
Never mind.
in all seriousness, Anissa, if people did want to keep up with you and not slide into your DMs with weird things, where could they find you?
That's a great question.
Tinder.
Where can you
I assume
find me?
Instagram.
I mean, my account's private. So
Yeah. Do you not want to be found? And
IMDb, baby.
I would say IMDb because I am one of those people that I only accept folks I know as followers because of
Fair.
my job.
that's
That's very
100% fair.
Yeah.
I would say IMDb
Oh.
is probably the best way to figure out what the hell I'm up to professionally.
I just asked Katie.
Well, also, Zeki, you follow me.
That's true.
Yeah, what the fuck?
We are friends.
Although I do like the idea that you still need to go through me. You got like this tertiary roundabout way of getting information about Anissa.
It's like really like anybody. I'm just like, Katie, what's this person up to? And I'll usually like find out.
Wait, why am I the go-to for
Because you
everything?
keep tabs
You
on
know
people.
everybody.
It's because you've got
Jesus.
anxiety, so you stay up to date.
Yes.
That's fair. That is actually very valid.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Well, Anissa, usually we ask people if they have anything that they want to plug. I know that you just finished casting on a project. I don't know if you're allowed to talk about that project. Oh no, it was announced, wasn't it? The last project you work on?
Yeah, Cast.
Cast.
Yep, CASTE. Cast. Based on the best-selling novel by Isabel Wilkerson. Yeah, I think it's gonna be really powerful is the word that I'm going to use. If anyone's read that book.
Does that have a release date yet, or is it still in production?
It's still in production. I'm gonna say probably end of year, if I had to guess. That's my guess. So yeah, and then whenever Blade comes out, go see that one too. But we gotta wait and see. I have no idea when that one's even gonna start filming. So
cool. Well,
and if you haven't already seen it, go watch Wakanda Forever, because that shit is good as hell.
True.
Yeah.
That's very true.
Definitely.
Yeah, Anissa, if you want to plug any of your old projects that you're just like, that's a good movie.
Actually, wait,
feel
hold
free.
on.
And Eternals and Doctor Strange. I actually really like
Anissa.
Eternals, and a lot of people are not on the same side of the fence as me.
Of all the movies that you've worked on, which one is your favorite?
Oh, this is it.
But I'm biased because of the fact that it was just so meaningful to me. It's Black Panther.
That's totally
It's
fine.
Wakanda Forever.
Yeah.
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 It's fair and valid.
Yep.
Okay, I have a question that's like not really related to casting at all, but I'm just very curious.
Okay.
What are the premieres like? Like, what are like the after parties at the premieres like?
Dope as fuck.
Katie's follow-up question to this is, do you
Can
get
I
a plus
come?
one, and can she be your plus one?
God, the list of I first off haven't gotten a plus one to any of them. So it's just been me. And if I ever did get a plus one to one of the Marvel ones, I promised that I would take my brother. So
That's fair.
yeah, so he's got the first dibs.
I get it. Your brother's more important than I am. I understand.
Why are you doing this in front of an audience? Like,
it's almost as bad as when she begs for advantage like 5 times in a row on a bad roll during a game.
When did this become Roast Katie podcast?
When you did that.
No, but in all seriousness, like I am curious what the premieres are like. Like, are the after parties sort of more of like a formality? Are they actually like crazy parties? Like what?
Oh, they're parties. They're
say no more.
I've only gone to 2. Like 2 after parties. Doctor Strange and Black Panther. Those were the 2. But the premieres themselves are also fun. Like the, walking the carpet is glamorous. And then you get, popcorn and your drinks and they take your phone and put it in a little pouch so you don't take any photos. And then you see, the actors and all the press, and everyone's all dolled up looking fabulous. And then, yeah, if you're lucky enough to go to the after parties, then you get like the real good food and stuff. Yeah, the Black Panther one was so cool. They're just like different sections of food and cake and music and all the actors, and then more people who weren't actors, and yeah, it was fun.
Nice. You mentioned like going to the premiere and everything. How much of the like actual filmed portions of project do you get to see like during the project, if any? And then are you ever asked, like, especially like in a recasting situation or something like that, or the script change, like, do you get to see that scene and then like make an educated decision based on that kind of thing? Or is like the premiere like the first time you're seeing it and like it's a big surprise?
The premiere is the first time that we see the movie.
Okay.
And sometimes we'll get dailies, which are like you'll get the clips from the day at the end of the day, but they're
Mhm.
you know, they're not the final product.
Yeah.
The only time that we see the whole thing in its final form is the premiere. So
that is a truly exciting time then, because you get to see like all that hard work.
exactly.
That's awesome.
And seeing all, and then the one thing is like seeing, because we read the script, and so it's funny to see like what makes it to the final cut and what they've changed in terms of like the dialogue, or like you'll remember, oh, I remember this character, he's not here, or oh, that was a pain in the ass role to cast, and look, there he is, I see him. So, you know, it's nice to see all the things, and like, especially when you go to the premiere, because you're with the people who you worked on it with, and so you're all just like, haha, remember that? So
Yeah, that is really cool.
Oh, that's awesome. Ben, Zeki, do you guys have any more questions for Anissa?
I think our brains are finally empty of questions.
Yeah.
For now.
my brain's just empty.
You're already
It's
a
like
step
mine never
ahead
had
of me.
anything in it to begin
Full,
with.
full heart, empty head. Can't lose. Right?
I think that's it.
Oh God. On that note, Anissa, thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate you hanging out with us for, you know, a chunk of time on your Thursday night.
Thanks for
Until
inviting
next
me.
You're welcome. Until next month, I am Katie.
I'm Ben.
And I'm Zeki.
And this has been How the Fuck.